Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. After the dry, high-pressure dominated January, there has been a transition through the early part of February to a more unsettled pattern. Is that trend set to continue? I'll begin by taking a look at the first week. The animation runs from 18 GMT, Tuesday the 8th. At the outset, a weather front is bringing outbreaks of rain to Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Northern Wales. To its south, dry and mild, mainly. To its north, it's colder and there are wintry showers. In the short term, that weather front just slowly edges southwards, and it's not really until Thursday that it clears away. By then, all the country is under the colder air mass and there are wintry showers in the west and the north. Worth pointing out as well the possibility of longer outbreaks of snow in northeastern Britain for a time. They could bring significant accumulations. Definitely worth keeping an eye on the short-range forecast to see how that develops. In the days which follow, it's a mixed pattern. High pressure has more influence from the south for a time, but through the weekend, a transition really to a more unsettled period of weather begins to shape up. Windy, heavy outbreaks of rain possible in all parts of the UK through Saturday and Sunday. They'll be gradually extending southeastwards. Details at this range are uncertain, so again, keep up to date with the latest forecasts and computer model output. But then, through the later stage of this animation, that unsettled theme really continues. Heavy outbreaks of rain push across the UK at times, and by 21 GMT, Tuesday the 15th, colder air from the west, the northwest is returning. It's bringing the risk of wintry showers to the west and the north of the UK once more. So, what's going on? Well, the jet stream animation gives some good pointers. It contextualizes things a little bit. For much of January, the jet stream was to the north of the UK, heading towards Iceland. But now it's a bit further south, and that trend really continues throughout the first week. It varies in strength, but by the end here, Tuesday the 15th, it's looking quite fierce here as it pushes across the Atlantic towards the UK. That's driving areas of low pressure towards the UK instead of them going northwestwards, as was the case in January, with high pressure being the dominant feature over the UK. What does all that mean in terms of temperatures? The MOGREPS chart helps to provide the answers. In the short term for London, it's quite a mild scene, double figures. Then the colder air reaches the southern part of Britain and maximums fall to about 6 or 7 Celsius. Later on, though, there are signs of those temperatures picking up once again as that unsettled period really gets going. Looking at the same chart but for Glasgow, colder to begin with because the North UK is already in the cold air and it stays with temperatures on the low side for a while. Towards the end, though, that more unsettled pattern as well leads to temperatures fluctuating more, some milder air getting into the mix perhaps at times. GFS temperature forecast table for London, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Belfast really just backs that picture up. Nothing particularly cold in the south. Even when that colder air moves down from the northwest, it's nothing out of the ordinary, just temperatures dropping a little bit, maximum 7s or 8s in southern Britain during the days, colder there in the north. There could as well be some night frost for a time, but I don't think it's looking likely to be widespread through this first week because it is quite a mobile pattern, strong winds at times. The bigger picture across Europe, Saturday the 12th, once again, as has been the case quite frequently recently, you've got to head a long way north or east to find the sub-zero temperatures. All in all, fairly mild or average in Western Europe. It's the wind strength, so once again, which are likely to be one of the key features of the weather in the UK. The wind gust forecast here from MOGREPS for London. Fairly quiet to begin with, or relatively quiet, but then By the 11th, there are some runs bringing in windier conditions, but it's really from the 12th onwards, possibly becomes very windy at times. 40, 50 mile an hour gusts on some days. Going up to Glasgow, it's windier there. Same general trend though, and particularly later on around the Valentine's Day period, could well be quite stormy. Rainfall. These are the 5 and 10 day GFS forecasts for accumulated precipitation. Days 0 to 5 on the left shows rather wet conditions in the northwest of UK. Elsewhere, totals are still on the low side. But the chart on the right is showing significantly wetter conditions in southern and eastern Britain than has been the case on recent updates. Even in parts of the southeast, totals there forecast to be over 40 millimetres through the 10 days. The comparable charts from the European ECM model support a similar general rainfall distribution. Totals in the southeast and East Anglia are a little bit lower on the right-hand side chart, but the general pattern is very similar. So, do the other deterministic models show an unsettled period of weather developing towards the end of the first week? Just to recap, this is the GFS chart for the 15th. High pressure has gone home to the Azores, and an Atlantic flow is covering the UK and the rest of Western Europe. At the same time, the Canadian model has high pressure having somewhat more influence, but the general pattern is similar. The German ICON model, the same story. The European ECM model, once again, low pressure to the northwest, high pressure to the southwest. It's a classical positive North Atlantic oscillation pattern. Finally, the UK Met Office, likewise, has a vigorous Atlantic flow spreading its wings across Western Europe. They all suggest an unsettled theme, rather mild to average in the UK, rain, strong winds, very typical for the UK winter, much more so than what we experienced during January. Will that mixed theme continue through the second week? As ever, it's all about trends and probabilities at this range and nothing more. Starting with the 16-day GEFS plot for London. Across the top, forecast 850 HPA temperatures, and the thick black line there, the 30-year norm, is slightly below most of the runs to begin with. The purple line there, the ensemble mean, you can see is just a little bit above it. But through the period, the ensemble mean doesn't really deviate far from that thick black line. On balance, though, slightly above the average would really be the takeout if this chart is correct. Rainfall, there are more spikes there than there have been on quite a few recent updates. An ongoing risk of rain in the south. The snow roll, just give a quick mention, indicates how many of the runs in the model are forecasting snow on a given day. It reaches a maximum there of 7, that's 7 out of 33. A low chance of snow in southern England. Going up to Glasgow, the upper air temperature profile across the top there is slightly below the average. It's colder relative to the average from the comparable one for London. Probably because incursions of polar maritime air will be brushing across the UK from time to time through the second week, and they'll really just be affecting the northern half of the country. In the south, it's more likely to be staying under milder air mass, often the case. Rainfall, well, lots of spikes showing through the second week. It's a wet picture. The risk of rain or snow continues through the second week. The reason I mentioned snow is because the values on the snow row there much higher than they were for the London chart, reaching a maximum of 20 on 2 days. That's, as I say, 20 out of 33, so close to a 60% chance. of snow falling. Always point out though that the snow road just indicates a chance of snow falling, not necessarily accumulating, so there could just be a few flakes in a shower, for instance. But again, it points to that general idea of colder pulses of polar maritime air moving across the north of the UK through the second week on occasion. Not all the time, it will be milder, temperatures will be fluctuating, but some colder interludes would be favoured according to this. So looking at the 2 metre temperature data tables, firstly for London, yellows and light greens dominating these columns suggests rather mild conditions being the outcome on most days. Yellows are 11 to 15 Celsius maximums, light greens 6 to 10. Perhaps the mildest conditions during the first few days and then maybe a little bit cooler later on. But all in all, above average temperatures being strongly favoured. Glasgow, dark green is the dominant colour in these columns. Forecast maximums of 1 to 5 Celsius. Colder on some days at least. Temperatures will be fluctuating, as I mentioned, with the air masses alternating, but the general theme is for it to be colder in the north of the UK than in the south. And you may well say that's always the case, but when I make the point here, I'm talking about relative to the average for the north and relative to the average for the south. The mean surface level pressure data table for York looks quite different to a lot of the recent updates. In previous weeks, the yellows and oranges, which you can just see at the start there, have been dominant. On this update, though, through week 2, it's blues, greens, purples even. There is some yellow, and that increases later on, and some of the orange returns. But generally, with the greens and blues and purples there, being making up a lot of the space on these columns, it suggests that lower than average pressure is likely for much of the time through the second week. Perhaps high pressure returns later on. The GEFS mean pressure plot for Friday the 18th of February is also supporting that general idea of a more unsettled pattern, an Atlantic flow covering the UK, high pressure to the southwest. It's consistent with the same chart from the European model. Not much to say about it, but the consistency heightens the level of confidence in this particular scenario being the outcome. Finally, the GEFS 10 to 15 day pressure anomaly chart. In recent weeks, the UK has often been under yellow shading, a positive pressure anomaly, but now the blues are dominant, and particularly to the north here. It's suggesting the jet stream will be sinking further southwards and areas of low pressure impacting the UK through this period, leading to an ongoing risk of wet conditions and potentially strong winds. So to summarise the 2 weeks, week 1, colder conditions slowly push southwards during the first few days. There will be wintry showers in the north and perhaps the west. Then turns drier for a short time, but through the weekend, unsettled weather begins to develop. Could become windy in all parts of the UK at times, and there is a risk of heavy outbreaks of rain. Week 2, the general theme is for it to be unsettled. Wettest still in the north, where there is a risk of snow at times, but significant rain is probable in all regions, even the south and the southeast. Rather mild generally in the south, but closer to average temperatures in the north, where some colder incursions are likely. So, there we have it. Quite a mixed bag of weather on the way during the next 2 weeks, I think. Wet at times, windy at times, some colder incursions, particularly in the north, where there is a risk of snow, often milder, especially later on in the south. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you for watching now. Bye.